I've thought about this many, many, many times in many ways. In my first book, I wrote a chapter called "If Only I Had ... then I would be happy," and how that blank gets changed constantly. From if only I were thin, to if only I had a book published, to if only I had the relationship, if only I lived in the place that I wanted to live, if only I had enough money. It just keeps on getting changed. And I'm not sure what the way through that is, because I'm not sure it's possible to discover that that isn't going to do it until you actually do it. That's the conundrum right there. When I got my first book published, which was in 1982, and it was an agonizing process because 25 publishers had turned it down, and the very last one, I had just written a blind query letter. I didn't have an agent. And I bought the writers, I can't remember, the Writers Market or something like that, and it gave the list of publishers. And so I sent it dutifully out to 26 publishers. And I had gotten rejected by all of them, except then came a letter from somebody saying, "I'm interested. Will you send me your manuscript?" And of course, I didn't have a manuscript. I said I did, but I didn't. And but I did have a lot of submissions, because that was an anthology that I was doing. And I called her on the phone, and I wormed my way in there for a 5-minute meeting. And I went in there, I had an empty briefcase, and I had my first suit on that I got at this place called Sims in New York. And I said, "I have the manuscript." And we actually really liked each other. She was lovely. I think about her as my publishing angel. She started calling me every 3 weeks after that and said, "Where is it?" And by that time, I was terrified, because I never really thought anybody was ever going to really like anything. So I lied to her, and then I couldn't lie to her anymore, and I called her and I said, "I've been lying to you this entire time. I don't have a book, and I don't care if I ever write a book, because this pressure is too much. Goodbye." And she said to me, "I believe in you. I know you can do this. Here's my home phone number. Call me anytime." It was beautiful. She was an angel. And then I sat down and I wrote the whole thing in 6 months. But the same thing happened with Women, Food, and God. We got a lot of rejections.
This?
We got a lot of rejection. So, this is, and how many years is that after publishing? Because, in publishing, of course, you're only as good as your last book. And my last book was my sweetheart book, which is a book I wrote about my cat and my father. And it took me 4 years to write that book. And it was the shortest book I'd ever written. And they didn't have anything to do with each other, so I really wove the story so that it did. And that sold about 3 copies. And so nobody wanted my next book. Nobody. It was the same agonizing process. Again. We believe somehow that self-hatred and fear and shame and punishment and deprivation lead to happy, contented human beings. Somehow, I don't know how that has gotten twisted. I really don't. But I see that in people's relationship with food. If I shame myself enough, if I deprive myself enough, if I make myself wrong enough, then somehow I will take care of myself. I will be loving to myself, and I will end up to be the person I want to be. And it never works like that, not once. I think that there's a difference in terms of the writing process. And I don't think self-hatred ever works, ever, in any situation at all. I think there's a difference between sort of an unerring sense of, this is really not the best I could be. This is not the best version of this. I'm just finishing another book right now, and we're on a fast track, getting it done. And it wasn't last week, I guess it was last month, where I said to my publisher and to my agent, "Look, I know we have a date when this is supposed to come out, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the quality of the book for that. And so if it comes out a year later, and if I ruin everybody's blah-de-de-blah, then that will be what I have to do, because I'm going to have to live with this for the entire rest of my life. And I knew at that point it wasn't the best it could be. And so, but that's not about criticizing myself so much as understanding when I read something that I've written that it's not as good as it could be for me.